Live.
Wow.
And how's it going, everyone? I'm Terry. That's Nick. And we are ready to talk hockey. Some people might be wondering, how could we possibly be doing that? There's no hockey today. No, we're not talking about tomorrow's games. We are talking about the whole season so far. So we are past the halfway point. Most teams have played anywhere from 48 to 53 games. So we are a little bit past the halfway point. But with the All-Star break, it's kind of like the halfway point with most portion of the season done. So I thought we would take a look at our surprises and disappointments so far this year. So we will jump into it here. I'll bring up the NHL, the standings, and then we'll go one by one. And we'll start with surprises. So happy. It's mostly happy. Surprises section. Teams that we didn't quite expect to be where they are. Obviously, we'll have some of the same ones. But Nick, I'll let you start. Pick a team in the league that is your biggest surprise this year.
Yeah, I have one in the East and two in the West for surprises. The first one here in the East, I'm not really hiding who I'm picking here. It's the New Jersey Devils. And I get it. This team was supposed to be okay heading into the year, but this is a team that we did not expect to be second in the Metro Division at the beginning of the year. Blue Jackets. I didn't have no expectations for the Blue Jackets. But New Jersey was one of those teams where even in the beginning of the season, we looked at them, and I think we discussed this on the preview show, why their point total was like 90 something, and we were shocked it was that high. And I think I said I was leaning under with that team with the point total, but said maybe a little devil's advocate, maybe this line was high for a reason, and it turns out the line was high for a reason. This team is overachieving, I think, right now. They've finally gotten halfway decent goaltending from Vitek Vanacek out of anyone that we thought it was going to be. I did not think it was going to be Vanacek. And this team is godly on the road. So that's kind of like where this team is overachieving too as well. So definitely a huge surprise for me so far this season for the Eastern Conference. It's the New Jersey Devils, and it's really nobody else because the East seems pretty straightforward. Obviously, Boston's probably a surprise as well because I didn't expect them to be this high, but I expected to be in the playoffs probably. But this is for my biggest surprise is the Devils.
All right. Yeah, obviously we're gonna have the same one there with New Jersey. So you spoke about that one. I'll go with my biggest surprise, and it's actually it's Winnipeg. Winnipeg is one of my biggest surprises this year. I was down on this team. I did not see them anywhere near the playoffs whatsoever. So it's a surprise for me. The Winnipeg has played so well under blanking on his name, the coach that Nathan hated.
Peter Boer.
No.
No, he left.
They switched coaches, or they didn't switch coaches. I can't remember his name right now. I'm sorry, guys. Winnipeg's coach. I'm blanking on his name. He was Dallas's coach last year.
Yeah.
And me and Nick are both blanking, so it's
wow.
The stoner.
Rick Bonus.
So now I have to look that up. I'm sorry, guys. Rick Bonus. Yes, thank you. Okay.
I started typing it in. I'm like, nope, I remember it down.
I can't believe I totally forgot that. Well, me as a stoner, it's okay. But you, Nick, you shouldn't have forgot as well. But
I know.
It is what it is. Winnipeg, a huge surprise for me this year. I definitely didn't expect them to be seventh in the NHL at this point in the year. So they're one of my biggest surprises. Nick, do you want to go over another one?
Actually, Winnipeg was the second one I wrote down. They were one of the two Western Conference teams that I wrote down. And I guess we can call them a surprise. I said that they could be this good if we get Connor Hellebuck at Vezina level again, which that's exactly what we've gotten. And maybe they just needed a different coach because this team defensively has been much better this season under Rick Bonus than they were last year. So this is definitely a Winnipeg team that's vastly improved. And My final surprise here in the Western Conference should come as no surprise. Release the Kraken. Seattle. I expected them to be better this year. I didn't think they were going to be a playoff team heading into the season. I truly didn't. I thought they were going to be one of those teams where I kind of compared them to what I kind of expected out of Buffalo this year, where I think they're going to be better. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team at the end of the day coming into the season, where I didn't think either of those teams would be playoff teams. I still don't think Buffalo is a playoff team yet. But Seattle is one of those teams where I didn't expect them to make the playoffs in year 2 like that. But I do think that they make the playoffs this year. But this is definitely that was definitely the third team I had written down as my biggest surprise is the Seattle Kraken. For legal reasons, no.
That's an interesting question. I do not medicinally. I do recreationally use marijuana, which is legal in Canada. Tim Smith, who is a Toronto person, or at least has a Toronto picture. Yes, but that's not exactly what the show's about. But yes, I do. How is Buffalo a disappointment? Tim has to say biggest surprise. I don't know. We're still on surprises, so we'll stick on surprises for now. But I guess Nick gave the rest of his, so I'll go over mine. Obviously, Boston is a huge surprise. I'm not as low on Boston as a lot of people were in the offseason, but definitely did not expect them to be number one in the NHL. Carolina and Toronto, I think, are pretty much exactly where everyone really thought, and there's nothing really surprising about them. Dallas, I expected to be a good team, maybe not leading the Central. I didn't expect Dallas to be quite this good. Tampa Bay, I obviously went over Winnipeg. Seattle, I'm actually okay. I did not say that Seattle would be leading their division, but I did see improvement with Seattle. I did see them as a playoff team, potentially, and that's what they currently are right now. So Seattle is looking good. LA, no real big surprise about them. The only thing I'd say about LA, since we are kind of going through the half, kind of the recap of the first half of the season, if LA did not make that Kevin Fiala trade, this team is not a playoff team. This team is not competing with Anaheim, but LA would look a lot more like Anaheim than they do right now if they didn't have Kevin Fiala, who's completely he's their best offensive player. So that was obviously a great trade for LA. They desperately needed him. Rangers, Vegas, no. Edmonton, Washington, Minnesota. Colorado's surprises, my final one. I'm going to go with Buffalo. So I'm going to go against you there, IceX. Buffalo usually starts the season off well and then kind of falters off. They haven't faltered off. And another reason Buffalo is a surprise for me is how well they've done betting-wise for me is a surprise. I can not count on them every night, obviously, but I've had a very good read on the Sabres, and they've been a surprise money-wise for me.
I would say the Buffalo Sabres are a surprise team for me, but they're exactly where I thought they were going to be completely honest. I thought they were going to be one of those teams that was going to be a fringe playoff team. Like, I thought they were going to be one of those where they're going to be 9th, 10th in the East. So I thought they are exactly where I projected them to be.
All right. Isaac laughs. Jose Sierra is laughing, probably about the marijuana discussion. But Bruins are always number one. I don't know about that. Boo. Sabres equals best betting New York team. Okay. Real Tim equals me. So, okay. Battle of the Tims. But now we'll kind of look at disappointments. So these are teams that maybe are here at the bottom of the league. Maybe teams that we thought would do a lot better. Nick, start us off. Who do you think is a disappointment this year?
I'll start off with my Eastern Conference pick. I have 3 in the West, 1 in the East. And the one in the East was last year's President's Trophy winners. And they're sitting currently 21st in the NHL right now, the Florida Panthers. This team has been a massive disappointment. We expected better out of them. I thought they were going to be a team that was going to compete for the top of the Atlantic again. And that trade that they had, the Huberdeau Kachuk trade. I mean, Kachuk's been great for this team. They're definitely missing Huberdeau, and they're just not the same this year. Goaltending's been a huge question mark for them. Bobrovsky's been very meh. We expected better out of Spencer Knight, and they've even had to have Alex Lyon start some games this season. This team's offense has fallen off a cliff compared to last year, where they were averaging almost 4 goals a game, and now I think they're in the low 3s, so they've definitely fallen off by about a goal a game, which is pretty significant. This is a Florida. I don't remember did I take them to miss the playoffs? I didn't think so. I thought they were still going to be a playoff team, but this is just that trade I think really messed with them. And obviously, I think their head coach was a pretty decent downgrade as well. So definitely a big disappointment here, Florida Panthers. Not even kind of close to a playoff spot right now. I know the point wise they are, but they don't have the games in hand to catch up to the wild card teams at the moment. So huge disappointment, Florida Panthers for me.
All right, I know one of your Western. I know probably 2 of your Western disappointments, or 2 that I would think for you, but we'll see if I'm right. We'll see if I'm right after. But I'm gonna kind of agree with Tim. This isn't my biggest disappointment. But Columbus, I can see why it's a disappointment for him. You trade for Johnny Gaudreau, and you don't really make a lot of subtractions from the team. So you trade for Johnny Gaudreau, and my assumption is Columbus would be kind of the same as last year, maybe a little bit better. But instead, they've completely fallen off a cliff. So they all have been very injured throughout the season, which is definitely true. But they're kind of a disappointment for me, Columbus, in the fact that I just did not see them being this bad. So I definitely can agree with Tim in that one. I'll go with one more. I'm looking at here. I obviously can't look at any of those teams because they're all at the top.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give Minnesota as a disappointment. 3rd in the Central right now.
They are where we thought they would be.
They're slightly under what I think that they've done. They have been a disappointment at times. Obviously, the first few games of the season, there has been disappointing factors with Minnesota, but I wouldn't say they are a disappointment. Nick, your Islanders, do you maybe want to give a little bit of a, because I know you're.
They are exactly where I thought they would be. I thought they were going to be a potential wild card team at best. So
yeah, because because they did play all the games on the road last year, and I thought at the beginning of the season you thought they'd be a bit better.
I did think they'd be a little bit better. But yeah, they're not at the exact same spot because last year they weren't even remotely close to the playoffs, and they're only a couple points out. This team, they do have potential. I like the addition of Bo Horvat offensively. Whether or not he finishes the season in an Islanders uniform is another question. But I can definitely see them making a little bit of a run the second half. I expected them to be a 7-8 seed if they did make the playoffs because the Islanders are not a regular season team. Their style of hockey is not regular season hockey. It's postseason hockey. That's the type of style that this team is built to win postseason hockey games. So all they really need to do is get in the wild card, and I think they'll be fine. But I'll touch on a couple of my disappointments here. And you were like, I already see a couple of them. Yeah, because if you scroll down a little bit, there's 2 of mine right there. Number 25 and number 27. Vancouver Canucks I thought was going to be an okay team. Wrong. I thought I saw they had a little bit of potential. They made a nice little run at the end of the season last year. Bruce Boudreau, I thought potentially they keep that forward. I think the injury to Thatcher Demko hurt them, even though Demko wasn't the greatest in the beginning of the season. I mean, their goaltending between Colin Delia and Spencer Martin, I would argue, was the worst in hockey. And their blue line is still terrible. I thought this team offensively would be better, which they have been decent offensively. And they've been a great over team. Spoiler, I've already bet they're over tomorrow against New Jersey. And then the other one here is a team I had a little bit of hopes with, and now looking back at it, them trading away and losing a couple players really hurt. St. Louis. St. Louis is a massive disappointment for me. I thought they were going to be a playoff team. I thought they were going to compete for the Central again because this team showed potential. And maybe they're a similar team to the Islanders where all they have to do is make the playoffs and then they can take off from there. But I wouldn't be surprised if in a month from now, Tarasenko is in a different place and O'Reilly's in a different place. And this team is starting to retool a little bit. I think them getting rid of Husso was a huge mistake. I thought at the beginning of the season it would help Binnington not having somebody breathing down your neck for the starting job. The guy's been terrible this year. And St. Louis last year has gone from a bet-on team for me to an absolute fade team for me. So very, very massive disappointment there with St. Louis for me. And then the final disappointment that I'll touch on here is the Calgary Flames. And I know they're still right in it because the Pacific Division sucks and the Western Conference playoffs are wide open because of it. And I still think Calgary has the potential to win that division, even though it's a little bit of a long shot. I still think there's maybe a little bit of value here because this team, when you look at their advanced analytics, should be a much better team than they are. And maybe that helps them turn around the second half. We saw this last year where they were a team that they had a great second half run, and that's how they won the Pacific last year. I'm thinking maybe we could see a little bit of that this year. Once again, they're similar to Florida, where that trade really kind of screwed with them. But I did expect Calgary to take a little bit of time in order to regroup because they blew up their core. They lost Goudreau in the offseason. They lost Tkachuk in the offseason. They lost a few players. And Kadri is going to take time. Huberdeau is going to take time. Weegar is going to take time. I think in the second half is when they're going to start playing better. But so far this year, they are disappointed.
All right. One for me that is kind of different from yours. So Florida, I saw Florida taking a step back. I didn't see it as big as what has happened. But I'm going to give, I hope Detroit Lenny's not watching or Turnsey. But Detroit, they're 21-19-8. They're not necessarily a bad team, but I did see Detroit taking that step forward this year, and they have not. They have not done that. I think another team that right above them that I have to add as a surprise that we went over before, which I'll have to go back to, is Philadelphia. I did not see them being 500 at this point in the season. So that is definitely a surprise for me. Going back to disappointments, I'm going to bring up this comment right here. No. Everybody thought everybody was drinking that Ottawa Kool-Aid. Everybody was Ottawa this, Ottawa that. Even there was someone on Twitter who I ended up having to block because we got into an argument about the Senators team. He actually said that the Bruins would be a lot worse than the Senators. And I said no. And obviously we see who won that battle. But when it comes to the Senators, I did not think I was not nearly as high on the Senators as everyone else. I said they'd be a good over team, which they really kind of haven't because their offense, which was supposed to increase by so much, has not. So can't be a disappointment for me here. Jose says Florida for him. It's their defense. It's bad. It's bad. And I can agree with that. They had even last year though, their defense and their goaltending wasn't really that good. It's just their offense was so strong it kind of covered up some of their defensive issues. But now that their offense is kind of gone, their defensive issues. Man, I thought we all laughed when Johnny Hockey. Yeah, I'm not necessarily. I didn't think it would make them a playoff team or anything, but I did think adding him would make them fall to bottom of the league. I did not expect a huge drop off with his addition. I'll kind of just scroll through here. So Detroit, St. Louis. I did not see them as this big of a downfall this year. I'd say I'm sorry to see that happening, but we would all know I'm lying, so I won't bother doing that. Vancouver, not a team I was high on, but again, I didn't see them being this bad. I do disagree with you about the Thatcher Demko. He was playing so horrible. I don't think if he was still playing, if he was healthy right now, I don't think their record would be much different. Okay, maybe some of the games they wouldn't have got blown out so bad, but I think overall, him falling off a cliff at the beginning of the season is what kind of did them in. He was just awful. So
I think it was just defensively too. Defensively they have one of the worst blue lines in hockey, and defensively they may be one of the worst defensive hockey teams we've seen in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah. Disappointments, not really a whole lot for me. I'd say Detroit and and Columbus. Chicago, I expected to be bad. They started off this season kind of good, so that was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
I guess you could go with Chicago's how they started. Anaheim falling off a cliff. Arizona was playing pretty good earlier on in the year, which is kind of a surprise. But now we will look to what Nick wanted us to talk about, and that is futures.
Well, let's make this a little bit of a betting show too. We'll talk about what we thought about the first half of the year, but now it's time to take a look at what potential futures have potential value. Now, when I say value, they probably won't win the division, but at that price is the only way I could play it. Like, obviously, Boston's going to win this division, but there's no way I'm placing a bet on minus 2,500 for Boston to win this division. So I kind of wanted to look at teams we can look that may have value, maybe to win their division in the second half of the year, or maybe to make a playoff spot, or compared to whatever. But I was thinking we could take a look at the divisions, and is there any? Obviously, Boston's the team that's gonna win this division, but would there be any value in a Toronto or a Tampa Bay to win this division? I think if there's any play in this one for me, it's Tampa Bay at 25-1, just because I could see some regression here from the Boston Bruins in the second half of the year. Not saying it's going to happen, but if there was a team to take over the Atlantic Division, I think it's probably Tampa Bay. Their advanced numbers for me look really good. And something I kind of want to look at when it comes to betting futures is which teams would have the easiest path to a division win. And usually that comes with playing the weaker competition. So strength of schedule is something I kind of do look at when it comes to futures. Take a look at where Boston's got about a middle of the pack schedule. So does the Leafs. And the Lightning actually have the 28th toughest schedule the remainder of the year. So they have one of the easier remaining strength of schedules to end the season, Tampa Bay. Not saying that they're going to win this division, but if there is a play in this division, I think it's Tampa Bay for me.
All right. I'm just going to go with okay. So Tim, if Tim is still watching, I'm not saying go and bet the Buffalo Sabres to win the division because it's mathematically kind of impossible. I know technically it isn't, but it's not going to happen. But all I'm going to say is I don't think Buffalo should have the same odds to win the division as Detroit, Montreal, and Ottawa.
Agreed.
I think the fact that Florida is plus 50,000, but Buffalo is plus 100,000, I think there is value in Buffalo, but I don't think they win this division. That's how I'm going to say it. Looking at these odds, I think Buffalo is not priced right, but I don't think they have a chance. Sorry, Tim. But I do think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to end the longest. So talking about futures and talking about this division, I do think Buffalo Sabres are going to make the playoffs and going to end the longest playoff drought in American sports.
Wow, BetOnline's not offering me a prop on the Sabres to make the playoffs. Let's see what DraftKings is offering.
But yeah, I think they are going to end. Seattle just ended the longest streak in the MLB for no playoffs, and I think Buffalo will end the now longest current streak. It's kind of funny there that FanDuel says no to Montreal. They're just like, no one's going to bet Montreal. So I don't know if they think Montreal has a chance or whatever, but that's just funny.
DraftKings isn't offering to make the playoffs for Buffalo either. Usually they have all the props up. For whatever reason, nobody's offering Buffalo to make the playoffs.
Interesting. We'll stick with the Eastern Conference and we'll switch over to the Metropolitan Division. And I'll go first this time. For me, you can't look at Philadelphia. You can't look at the Islanders. You can't look at Washington. And you can't look at Pittsburgh. And I'd say even the Rangers. I think it's a 2-horse race, but I think it's priced correctly. When you're looking at division winners, the Devils, they're just not. I love the Devils. They've made me money all season long, but they're not on the same level as Carolina, and I can't see them winning this division. So really, if you were forcing me to make a play, I would be parlaying Carolina to win the division with another team, and that's how I would go with it. But singly, I can't give out a pick. I won't give out a pick for this division because I don't think any of the plus money teams win it. So, Nick, futures, what do you think for the Metropolitan?
Yeah, I'm always somebody who looks at not the favorite, and I will give you guys a play for every division that is not the team that's currently leading the division. That's kind of the way I'm approaching this. Where if the first place team is going to fall out of it, I am looking to find the team that will take that spot. New Jersey, I think, is probably the only option here. The Rangers may have some value at 17-1 because I think the Rangers could be a team that goes on a little bit of a run. Igor gets hot, whatever. This team, we saw it last year. They win games they're not supposed to because of Shesterkin, so I can easily see them going on a run like that. But for me, probably the Devils plus 350, plus 400. This was a team that in the beginning of the season on their hot run, they were minus 200 to win the division. They were up high like that. They have fallen off a little bit, but this is a team, we've seen it before. They can get very streaky, and they can go on a really nice streak. So if there's anybody here, it's probably New Jersey at almost close to $4. This is not something I'm betting. I'm more interested in the futures in the Western Conference.
Perfect.
Those are wide open.
That's exactly where we will go to, and we'll start with the Central. Chicago, a plus 500,000 is the smartest bet you can make.
Absolutely.
The Blackhawks are 100% winning this division. Or you could scroll down a little bit further and take the Yotes.
Oh, yeah.
I completely forgot about the Yotes. They existed. But no, looking at this division, really, it's one of these top four. I think one of these top four, obviously the bottom four are not winning the division. You're looking at the top four. You have one team that's minus 110, minus 140 at DraftKings, minus 140 in other spots as well. Or you can look at Colorado, which is plus 300 to plus 380, or Winnipeg or Minnesota, which are both about plus 500 to plus 550. There is some value here. And I'm not ready to give – I did bet Minnesota to win the Central Division earlier on at the exact price that it is now, so it hasn't moved at all. From what I've seen – from what I've seen, I'm not ready to say that I think Minnesota is going to win this division still. What I am ready to say, though, is that the trade deadline is coming up. And, of course, we're doing this show now. When we're talking about futures, we really should be doing the show after the trade deadline. So we'll probably do another one because most likely, well, not most likely, definitely, there's going to be a bunch of trades which are going to look at Bo Horvat already getting moved. So there's going to be a bunch of trades and teams like Minnesota or Winnipeg could be buyers in some aspects. Minnesota, even with the cap situation, still could be looking at Brock Besser, from what I've heard, a homecoming for Besser. So there's different things that could be done. But for this division here, I don't know. Obviously, it's the division that I watch the most. I think Dallas is overpriced. I think Colorado is obviously improving from their injuries because they had a bunch of injuries and they kind of fell off there. But who's to say injuries don't hit them again? Who's to say that they can keep up this level of play? I do think there's value with Colorado, but I'm just torn in this division. Nick, what do you think about the Central Division?
Yeah, and here's the thing for both the Central and the Pacific divisions. I have divisional futures on both of them. I did grab about a month ago Colorado at $4 to win this division. When we look at it here, Colorado is going to have a relatively easier strength of schedule. They have the 27th ranked strength of schedule the rest of the season. The Wild and the Jets are 30 and 31. So both those teams have actually pretty easy schedules rounding out the year as well. So I do think there is value in any of those top 4 teams that are not named the Dallas Stars, because I don't lay minus prices on division winners mid-season like this. But I think an interesting look potentially in this division is plus 135 to plus 145 here for Nashville to make the playoffs. And I can see the Central getting 5 teams in the playoffs potentially here, because I think the Central is a much stronger division than the Pacific, and I can see somebody like the Nashville Predators squeaking into that last wild card spot like we've seen them do the last few years. So I definitely can see something along those lines. Plus 135. I think there may be a little bit of value here for the Nashville Predators to make the playoffs.
All right. Isaac's misspelled there. Tim's and says, cool story, Tim. Real deal, Sabres playoffs? I think so.
Next year.
I think so. Nick might not. Tim definitely does. You don't even have to ask
I did take over, I think 77.5 or 72.5 points for the Sabres this year preseason, but I don't know about playoffs.
Betting question: what is their watch out for betting after the All-Star break in Frello? Are you asking what team should we be watching out for? I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at.
Yeah.
I've looked at tomorrow's games, but I haven't looked at the rest. I have the rest of the week typed out and stuff, but I haven't actually looked at it. So I haven't really looked at whose schedule has what. But the one thing about after the All-Star break is we might get some crazy things happening. These teams, the players have been off for a few days, so we never know what to expect.
And if you want to look back at what happened last year, and this is perspective for the totals here. I looked at the 4 days after the All-Star break. There was 22 hockey games in those 4 days. 12-10 to the over 6.5, 12-6-4 to the over 6, 16-6 to the over 5.5. So there was a lot of overs after the All-Star break last year, and there was 22 games. At least 4 goals were scored by the winning team in 19 of them. So team total overs are a decent look for the team you like to win, because we saw a overwhelming majority of the game winners or of the winning teams after the All-Star break putting up at least 4 goals. So something to look at there. Just probably more goals after the All-Star break.
Interesting, because I'm on an under tomorrow.
Oh boy,
we'll move on.
If it's an Islanders game, then that makes sense. So
no comment, but yes.
Okay,
yes.
There we go.
We'll talk. Well, yeah, because they've been going under 3.5, so 5.5 is a big total for them. But
yeah,
but no, Am I excited to be betting an under after the All-Star break? No, but it's one game where I'm going to. Looking at the Pacific Division, this one's crazy how wide open it is.
Yes.
Really, I think any of the 5 teams listed here, Seattle, Edmonton, Vegas, Calgary, and LA, all have a possibility. Vancouver, no. Maybe mathematically they're still possible. They still have a chance. But after trading away Horvat, which is just the first of the moves that are going to be done by Vancouver, they are not. They're not going to be buyers. I think the 5 teams above them, we could see all 5 of them making trades. Like, I think this could be a very competitive division still going through right to the playoffs. I can't give out a pick for this division. I do like Seattle. They are number 1 there. They don't have the best value. I've been saying for a while about the Kraken that they could win this division. And I think as it stands right now, if there's no trades, which there definitely will be, I do think Seattle wins this division. I think it's close. But the Kraken, like New Jersey, can win on the road. And as long as they can win at home, start to kind of improve their home record, their ability to win on the road is what I think will help them win this division. So I do like the Kraken to win this division, but stay tuned because me and Nick will do a show after the trade deadline, going over the trade deadline itself, and then what we think after that. And I bet you we'll have different opinions after the trade deadline. Nick, what do you think about the Pacific?
I took a little bit of a long shot here. About a little bit less than a month ago, I expect a good second half performance from this team. Maybe it took a little bit for them to get a little bit gelled. I don't like VGK, and I liked VGK heading into the year. I will say that I was a huge proponent for VGK. I said I really liked them up until one point. If they're not healthy, I want nothing to do with them because this team, half their team is on the IR, and that's a problem. I took a shot with Calgary at plus 650 about a month ago. I expect this team, when we look at them, their advanced numbers show that they should be a much better hockey team. They should be winning more games, and they just need better goaltending from Markstrom. We need the Markstrom from last year rather than what we've gotten this year. So I do think Calgary is a bet-on team going forward for me, at least. I think there's some value with them to win this division. I don't think they're obviously looking at what it was preseason. What were they preseason? When we look at futures here for the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken were 80 to 1, 40 to 1, to anywhere from 35 to 1 to 40, 50 to 1 preseason. There's no way in hell I'm touching them at plus 150. There's no more value with them here. I think if you're looking at a future with Seattle, at this point, you probably look at their point total under because their adjusted point total is 101.5. I don't think they hit that. I don't think they hit 100. I think the winner of this division can win this division with 95 points. I don't think the West is very good, other than them beating up on each other. This is a team. This is a conference. This is a division where they're going to have 3 playoff teams, and it's probably going to be Calgary, Seattle, and Edmonton. Those are my if I had to pick, because I don't trust Vegas health-wise, and I don't trust the LA goaltending. So I think it's those 3 teams probably make the playoffs from the Pacific Division, and we see 5 from the Central. So I would probably look at, and I think Seattle, if they win this division, it will be at 95, 98 points. I think 101.5 is a little high. So that's kind of where I would look at this team, is maybe taking their adjusted total under 101.5 points, because I could see them kind of regressing in the second half of the season. And we haven't seen a full season of Martin Jones or Martin Jones in a while, where he's been consistently good all season long. So I do think we see a little bit of regression from Seattle. Could they win this division still? Absolutely. I think there's value with Calgary if I had to bet anyone, which I did bet Calgary about a month ago. So that's kind of where I'm looking here.
Interesting. See, I have to, me and you disagree about this. I think there's more of a chance of Calgary. Well, obviously the odds would support this, but I think it's more likely that Calgary misses the playoffs than wins this division.
Probably.
I don't really see Calgary in it, but trade deadline. I mentioned it a few minutes ago. Calgary could very well go all in at the trade deadline, and they could very well change their season. I think this division, I think whoever goes for it the most, I think has the best chance in this division, because I expect the 5 teams, even LA. I think LA is going to be buyers.
Yeah,
I think they're going to think they can make the playoffs, and I think any one of the 5 teams at the top of this list could be strong buyers and could potentially win the division. Little Perk 30 says, if you bet Seattle and Edmonton, you still profit because no way Vegas wins with Stone out.
You're forgetting about Calgary and LA, though.
Yeah. I don't think you still profit because the bottom 2 teams could potentially we have to see closer to the trade deadline. After the trade deadline is done, that's why I wasn't really going to look into futures at this point, but Nick wanted us to. Blame it
I
on
kind of
Nick.
want to look at it a little bit here.
No, it's okay to look at the futures, but it'll be much more apparent on where teams are going when we get to the trade deadline, I think, for futures. But
Also, if you think a team is going to go all in at the trade deadline, now is a great time to buy them on them now. Like, hypothetically speaking, if you like Calgary to go all in at the trade deadline, grab them plus 650 now, because let's just say they go out and get try and think of a free agent that would actually move the market, a Patrick Kane or something like that. If they go out and get somebody big like that, they're not going to be plus 650 then. They're going to drop to 500. They're going to drop to 450. So that's something we got to keep in mind is if you like a team to make moves during the trade deadline, buy on them now, because you're going to see people overreact to these trade deadline acquisitions as well. We saw that this year in the NFL. People were going and betting San Fran right away after Christian McCaffrey went there, like things along those lines. So we will.
Nick,
I bet him after the Tampa Bay game. I just want to put that one out there, but that's beyond the point. But no, like there is value on teams if you think they're going to make moves in the trade deadline.
Yeah,
that's what I'm kind of getting at here.
Futures, before we kind of finish off the show, I'm going to give out two teams that I think will be buyers at the deadline and will be making moves. One, it's already been kind of discussed a few minutes ago, Vegas Golden Knights. With Mark Stone out, depending on how long he's out, I don't know exactly how long he's out. But if he's on LTIR, teams know. Teams watch Tampa Bay on their cup run and how they used the LTIR to their advantage. And I expect Vegas to acquire a kind of bigger name player with Stone being out. Most likely a winger.
Yeah, they say indefinitely here for him.
Yeah, so I think they would potentially keep him out till the playoffs just to get another player, which is what Tampa did. And another one, Carolina Hurricanes with Max Pacioretty unable to, like, I'm not going to say that was a bad deal for them because look at what he did in the few games he played. And if he was healthy, it would be such a great trade. But with him kind of being injured again, most likely, I don't think he's playing the rest of the year.
He's done for the year. He is done for the year.
So, yeah. So Carolina's going to be doing something. Watch out for them because they've got cap space now. So definitely watch out for the Hurricanes. That's another reason why I said when we in that division that I would parlay Carolina with another team to win the division just because of the odds, is because Carolina has cap space. They're already such a great team and they have cap space, which is just dangerous because they're going to use it.
Carolina Cup futures are not a bad idea either.
Yeah, I think so. But that's basically it. Calgary won't be able to win enough games to catch up. Can't see Kings placing first. Yeah, as of right now, if we're looking at it right at this moment, I agree with you on both. But depending on the trade deadline, I think either one of these teams could make some trades and could win their division. And I think with Calgary, one thing I was looking at for tomorrow's slate, who's in net for Calgary really matters. Vladar's won 5 straight games. Markstrom's lost 4 or 5. So depending on where that goes, Vladar could potentially take over the starting job in Calgary.
He should.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising. Betting-wise, what to watch out for teams that trade away / acquire players?
Back them short-term, fade them long-term. The first couple games that they're missing their big, like, so let's just say Arizona trades away Gostisbehere and Chychrun. Maybe back them the first game or two and then go ahead and fade them.
Let's talk about the Bo Horvat.
Horvat.
So I think the Islanders could be a team long-term to watch out for, but I think I want to kind of explain that. So the Islanders, I think, could go on a run with Bo Horvat. It's way too early to tell. I think they're probably going to still make another move. I don't think Amarillo is done, but Islanders could potentially go on a run if Horvat fits in well. But the problem with acquiring and trading away players is you don't know how they're going to fit in with your team. Yes, Horvat was killing it in Vancouver. He was like having a career year, but being traded to New York could help him or it could hurt him. So, watch out for that's what to watch out for. I think is how the players do when they get traded to their team, and how the team plays with them, how chemistry works, and
Yeah, that's one thing I will touch on here is that Bo Horvat trade is number one. That's not the last move Lou Lamoriello is going to make, I think, because if you look at it, they made Vancouver eat most of his contract, which still has available cap space for the Islanders to go out and make another move. So I noticed that he specifically did that. So I'm fully assuming Lou Lamoriello to go out and acquire somebody else. And when it comes to the Bo Horvat addition to the Islanders, I think it's going to be a good addition because adding him improves two things that the Islanders desperately need. Goal scoring, because he has 31 goals so far this year, which is, I think, top 10 in the NHL. He's got 11 power play goals, which if you look at the Islanders' power play, I would go on record to probably say it's probably the worst in the NHL right now, or one of bottom three in the NHL right now. So they massively and desperately needed something to improve there. And on the other side, does Bo Horvat stay an Islander for more than the next month? Or is he somebody that's a trade piece? Because maybe the Islanders acquired him. I mean, they were going to re-sign Beauvillier, and we didn't really know too much about Rotzi, which I really liked. I kind of liked him a little bit. But could this be something where, I don't know, maybe the Hurricanes wanted him, or maybe the Rangers wanted him, and the Islanders swooped in and said, nope, we'll take him. We don't want, and we'll go ahead and we'll swap him at the deadline to a Western Conference team. Maybe someone like Colorado gets him, something like that. I heard somebody mention that this could be a trade bait flip type of thing for the Islanders. If they don't plan on re-signing him, trade him by the trade deadline. If you don't plan on re-signing him, get rid of him, because long term we don't need a rental for this team that I don't know if it's a playoff team or not. But if you plan on signing him long term, like you did with Pageau a couple years ago when you signed him, or Paul Mary last year when you acquired him, then yes, Bo Horvat was a good move if they re-sign him to at least 3 or 4 years. So this is a trade where if they don't do that, then they'll probably trade him by the deadline. So that's another thing to watch out for the Islanders here with Horvat. But yeah, I think it's a good move short term at the very least for the Islanders.
Yes, long term with the Islanders. I said something nice about the Islanders a few minutes ago. Now I think I'll go back to how I normally talk about it. No, I'm just kidding.
Good.
But I think Nick is going to have to prepare for, I would say, what Tim had to go through, but Tim kind of became a Sabres fan at the end of their dreaded history. But I think this Islanders team in about 3 to 5 years are going to be in trouble. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NHL in 3 to 5 years. But hey, at least you have
that's what happens when you make deep playoff runs a few years in a row and you acquire players with first round picks.
That's true. And when you're old and an old team and you just get older, prospects really matter. So, but That is it. That is the show. Anything else you want to say before we head on out?
No. Tread lightly out of the trade after the All-Star break. Let's see how these teams look on their first and second games back. I know I won't be firing away with as much volume. I will be still betting the way I normally bet, but definitely don't go gung-ho. And maybe tread lightly on unders. Because I know I do like an under tomorrow, but it's going to be few and far between because I know post All-Star break it trends a lot towards the overs. So, but yeah, look at the way these teams look after the All-Star break.
All right, and that's the show. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Tune into my show every day, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Getting Wild with Terry and Friends channel. Obviously, check out ESB. Usually 10 in the morning right now on weekdays. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's usually going around 10. Anywhere 10 or 11. Subscribe to both channels. And we hope you found this information useful. And we'll see you again. Have a good one, guys.